While I was gone on vacation, Joe Rogan was a busy man. He was a busy man. So he's been all over the map recently. He endorsed or came out in support of Ron DeSantis. David Dole did a segment where it was funny enough. It was in a podcast from either the same week as this one, or maybe it was a week apart. But Rogan was talking to Tom Segura, and he called Canada a communist country. So he's been all over the place. He said a bunch of terrible things, and then we also have this where somebody clipped this out. Here he is talking to Andrew Schultz, who, by the way, is supposed to be on Crystal Kyle and Friends very shortly. I need to confirm that, but we were talking to him the other week. Anyway, him and Schultz, Rogan and Schultz politics came up, and we got this moment.
That's why we hate someone like Trump, because Trump believes he should be president and he wants to be president.
Yes, and there's something a little icky about it.
Out of here.
Dude, and I think that what was so endearing about Bernie, it was like, this motherfucker don't want to win, he wants to help. Now,
props to Andrew Schultz. I did not know, I had no idea that Schultz was, at the very least, Bernie adjacent. I didn't know that. But clearly, at the very least, he's Bernie adjacent, if not, would actively vote for Bernie. So props to Andrew Schultz there.
His idea of help, do you agree with it? That's to be said by the average person. But did you feel like he cared about winning and controlling?
No.
I never got that sense from him.
No, I got a sense that he genuinely looks out for the working class.
Yes.
And he genuinely...
Look, I hate to relitigate all the way back in 2016 yet again, but this is why the whole hashtag Bernie would have won thing blew up. Because people had the intuitive sense like, yeah, he probably would have beaten Trump. People looked at Hillary Clinton and they thought, conniving, backstabbing, terrible record on all the policies, deeply corrupt. I mean, there was an article, what was it, in Politico, that said, like, the Clintons had taken, I forget the exact number, $3 billion from donors in their entire careers, together. People look at Hillary and they're like, I don't trust her, and I don't think she's looking out for us. Whereas people looked at Bernie and they thought, just like these guys are describing here, ultimately just wants to do good and help people. He reluctantly even ran in the first place. There were articles way back in the day. He was trying to get Elizabeth Warren to run so he wouldn't have to run. This isn't a guy who's thirsting for power, like they're accurately pointing out Donald Trump does on a regular basis.
He wants to help people. That's why I said that I supported him.
100%.
When he was explaining how his situation works with taxes, that they would just tax a small percentage of speculation, of stock trading, just a tiny percentage of all these trades that are happening constantly, and that money could go to education, that money can go to welfare, that money can go to all these different things that would use to benefit society. I was like, I'm in.
That sounds good.
Is that real? What else are you trying to do? You trying to avoid war?
That sounds cool.
What else are you trying to do? Trying to eliminate student debt?
Hey!
What else? What about healthcare? Free healthcare? I'm in.
And he's a radical.
That's why we hate someone like Trump.
Rogan's been all over the place recently. In a sense, he sort of represents your normie American voter, because he went from Bernie now to DeSantis, but at the same time he's liking DeSantis, he's still singing Bernie's praises. I don't know how one can do that, because, again, it's like if you're prioritizing the policy stuff, then you have to drop DeSantis, because, Rogan supports a higher minimum wage. Ron DeSantis is against it. Rogan supports legalizing weed federally. Ron DeSantis is against it. We did the whole breakdown of Ron DeSantis' record. He's a deeply corrupt guy. Deeply corrupt. He shifted the tax burden away from corporations in Florida to working class people. Rogan's for lower taxes on working class people, so he should be against that. So, look, there's just... In a sense, he seems confused, but clearly he still genuinely likes Bernie Sanders. And, this conversation that they're having, I think, is spot on, and I think Andrew Schultz is correct as well, and clearly he's, at the very least, Bernie curious or Bernie adjacent. But this, man, gotta get him back from that edge of the DeSantis trap, because DeSantis substantively, I understand if you vote or think about politics based on vibes, like who do I feel like is the most normal or the most relatable, then you could see somebody going from wildly different ideological camp to ideological camp. But nobody should think about politics that way. You have to think about it in terms of policy. And what are people actually going to implement? What are they going to fight for? What legislation? That's really all that matters at the end of the day. So now we also have and this is on David Pakman's channel here. I'm going to speed it up to 1.25. Joe Rogan calls Trump a drugged out man baby. Now, this, funny enough, again, this is in the same podcast that he had with Tom Segura. Now, it's the Segura podcast where Joe Rogan called Canada communist. But he's also going to say this in this podcast. By the way, he also went on like 5 seconds after saying Canada's communist. He's like, I don't really know what goes on in that country politically. Well, then maybe, calling them communist is not a good idea if you don't know what's going on there substantively. Anyway, let's see what he says here.
Use this sort of like turning on Donald Trump. Rogan now acknowledged that he believes Donald Trump was regularly on.
Some people think the reason why Rogan is going after Trump now is because he supports Ron DeSantis. I definitely don't think that's why he's going after Trump now, because honestly, he's gone after Trump a lot in the past. People just never talked about it, didn't recognize it. He had Sam Harris on, where Sam Harris shit on Trump for like 2 hours straight, and Rogan was sitting there agreeing with him. I knew, going back a year or more, Trump was trying to get on Rogan's podcast, and Rogan was like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to help him even inadvertently. So it's not that he's going after Trump now because he supports DeSantis. It's that people are just recognizing now that he goes after Trump because everybody just assumed he was a Trump supporter because of the stuff he had said on COVID and probably some other stuff as well.
Uppers during his presidency and called him a man baby during a recent show. This is interesting for a couple reasons, which I will tell you. Daily Beast reporting, Joe Rogan calls Trump a drugged out man baby. The mega popular podcaster laughed at Trump's inability to focus on anything but himself in his latest episode. Trump and Rogan now in, I guess, what we would call a feud. And Rogan suggesting that Trump's energy comes from Adderall, called him a man.
Again, it's funny to me that this is news now because I've been on Rogan's podcast 4 times, and I think in at least 2 of those podcasts, we talked about how Trump is probably high as fuck on Adderall 24/7.
Baby, this was during a conversation with comedian and frequent guest Tom Segura. Let's take a look at this, and I'll tell you why it's interesting in a moment.
Tom Segura is really funny, by the way. I think his stand-up is good. I think his podcast is oftentimes really good.
Well, about that guy is that, I'm saying even when you watch him as president, he was full of energy.
Full of it.
Every day. And they say he slept like 4 hours a night. He's one of those people.
He's on Adderall.
God.
You think he's on Adderall?
By the way, I don't know, the whole I sleep 4 hours a night thing. Super sleepers, as they're called, are real, where some people can perform well even with a lot less sleep than your average person. That's real. But, you do hear these stories about, like, all these high-profile, leader-type men who, I'm pro, I only sleep, like, a couple hours a night. Sleep is the cousin of death, bro. That's something I heard when I was, like, in high school. I thought it was really stupid. And I don't know if I buy it. I think it's also a little bit of myth-building. Certain people like to pretend, like, I get by, I'm, like, no sleep because I'm a badass. But I think that a lot of that is, like, posturing and fake. In terms of Trump, I have no idea if it's real or fake. I could see it going either way, to be honest.
Yes, I do. Only because there were multiple people who used to work on The Apprentice that were like, he was gassed up for shoots.
Yeah, I covered that as well. There were a number of people on The Apprentice who were like, I think some even said they saw him snort Adderall. Snort it. And by the way, that would make sense. What debate? I think it was the second debate with Hillary, the one where they were standing after the scandal came out with grabbing by the pussy, where Trump keeps doing the, like he would talk and then sniff. That's the drip. That's if you snort cocaine or you snort Adderall, that's the drip that you get. So, and again, yeah, his energy. And there are times where you could tell he was crashing from his Adderall. He gave a speech one year at CPAC, or no, was it the UN or CPAC? I don't remember. No, the CPAC one, he was bonkers and through the roof and clearly high as balls. But then the UN one, he was like, and I would say to the people who want to bring about peace in the region. So you've seen both. You've seen him on the way up. You've seen him on the way down.
Really? Yeah, because he has trouble reading. He doesn't. He would struggle to read prompter or script when he was.
We know that's true because we just watched him do it. He was like, the word yesterday is tough for me. I don't know. Take that one out. It might be overstated. Like he knows how to read. He knows how to read, but it's very. He's idiosyncratic with it. He doesn't like certain words to be on there, and he does struggle to get it out coherently. But hey, look, I understand that because I'm the same. I don't like reading a prompter. I like to shoot from the hip, talk off the cuff, and that's more engaging, by the way, when you just talk off the cuff. People want to listen to you when you're clearly speaking from the heart. If you're reading it, it's easy to tune out.
Just, let's say, sober. So they would give him that, and he would dial in more on reading because he gets very bored. They said, he would get bored at the CIA briefing in the mornings. He was like, I don't want to read that. There's a daily briefing you get as president. He's like, you read it and then tell me. And if it's bored, so they would have to make it more engaging for him because he would.
I
Just
heard that
tap
they
out.
would put his name in briefings multiple times to keep him interested.
And then Kushner, his son-in-law,
Yeah.
said that he came up with a formula to keep him engaged.
This is called the bad news sandwich. It's often done in a lot of venues.
Kushner did?
Yes, because he obviously was close to him and knew him well, and the formula was like 2 good, 1 bad. So if they were going to give him bad news, they could go, you start with some good news. So they go, this is going well. Everybody's thrilled with you about this. Here's a bad thing. Also, people love you for this. So that's how they would tell him bad news. They couldn't just go, here's a bunch of bad news.
Of course.
Yeah.
He's a man baby.
He's a toddler. Yeah, he's a toddler.
So there's 2 things here, and I think that they're both important.
Yeah. All right. We don't need to dive into Pacman's commentary. Not as a diss to him, but, I just wanted to show that portion of the video there of Segura and Rogan. Yeah, so Rogan is, it's classic Rogan, right? It's very, I think this, but then I also think this. And are those things contradictory? Maybe, but, this is what I think in this moment, this is what I think in that moment. And that's, people have pointed this out a number of times. He has Ben Shapiro on, and he agrees with him like 90% of the time. He has me on, he agrees with me 90% of the time. It's just the nature of what it is. But anyway, all you could do is keep, saying, hey, man, on this stuff, you're wrong, and I disagree with you massively, but on this stuff, yeah, fair point. So, hey, look, I'm happy to see that at least he still likes Bernie Sanders, defends Bernie Sanders, openly says, free college, I like that. Oh, eliminating student loan debt, I like that. Oh, taxing Wall Street speculation, I like that. That's all good. I would implore him, for the love of God, Joe, that means you cannot believe those things and then also say, and Ron DeSantis is based. Can't do it, because Ron DeSantis stands for the opposite of every single thing you just espoused.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.